CSI, John, your turn for 2. KD1 CSI. Not heard. KS7UX. Working.
You're the first one in the last year that's actually told me that things were bad down there. So I'm sorry to hear that. But have yourself a very, very good New Year, and thank you for the contact. It's a pleasure to talk to you, but I feel I'm hogging you when other people probably want to talk. ZS6BAF from K2JLD. Now, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for a car. I'm not sure because I don't look at the prices on BMWs, but I suspect that they probably start around 80,000 here, although they may have gone up. But I believe they start about 80,000 US dollars in this country. They may have gone up.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Whiskey 2 Juliet Victor, and I'm streaming here on Twitch, and not sure exactly where this is going to go, but my goal, I guess, is to introduce people that are not familiar with amateur radio, to give them a little sampler of what amateur radio is all about, and for those who are in fact in our hobby, to give them some ideas of where the hobby might be able to take you and how you might advance through the hobby and perhaps enjoy some of the other bands. What you're seeing right now is a stream from my Flex radio. It's a Flex 6400M, and it's a software-defined radio. So if you want to find more information about what a software-defined radio can do, you can visit the Flex community, the Flex radio site, and learn more about the features that it has. Enough said, though, that it is really a state-of-the-art radio. It's combining the latest solid-state technology, combining all the filtering, all the signal processing power to really be able to produce the best signals and make signals that are not perhaps hearable on other bands, copyable here on the Flex radio. So this hopefully will appeal to people that are younger people that might be really interested in combining amateur radio and their computers. Just as I guess a quick overview, what I'd like to be able to do is I'm not really going to call this Amateur Radio University. It really is sort of just a welcome primer to amateur radio. I received my license in 1964. Some of you may recall 1964 is the inception of the World's Fair in Queens, New York, and I was all of 15 years old and walked over to the Coca-Cola Pavilion, where they had this gorgeous Collins S line. I was a CB operator, so I never saw something that special, and enjoyed sitting around for days on end, off and on, listening to different celebrities who had their amateur radio license. I didn't know Barry Goldwater at the time, K2. I forgot his call, but he was an amateur radio operator, as well as Gene Shepard. I believe his call was K2ORS, and listened to them talk on the radio, and from there I began my search to get my novice license. And back in 1964, what do? You get on your bicycle and you kind of ride around looking for someone that might have an antenna on their roof. And sure enough, 2 blocks away from my neighborhood, and of course that's divine fate, I would think. 2 blocks away, come on, that's too coincidental. Never knew the man, but saw his beam. He had basically a 3-legged type of tower on his roof, and that mount onto a Mosley beam, and it was, I think, a 3-element Mosley beam sitting a few feet off his roof. So I knocked on the door one evening, put my bicycle down, and said, "Are you a ham radio operator?" And he said, "How'd you guess?" And I looked up at the antenna. He invited me down into his shack. His shack happened to be in his basement. Well, he had the necessary license, the extra class license, where he could administer at the time my novice class ticket. And my novice class ticket required me to pass a 5-word per minute code test, as well as 20 questions for the technical side. And within 1 year, I then had to go through my next level, the technician level license, and he was also able to administer that as well. And so he gave me that, and at that point, I decided to go to my house and ask my parents if I could possibly put up some kind of antenna on the roof. Now, I never expected them to say yes, but sure enough, this was a pretty new house, and I was able to put up at that time a top section, 10-foot top section of a Roan tower, drilled into their roof by a bunch of amateur kids. Never leaked though, and it was solid as can be. It was just a great setup. And there I had 2 beams. I had a 6-meter beam and a 2-meter beam. And I picked 6 meters because at the time I just had my tech license and wanted to operate long distances, because on 6 meters, because of what's called sporadic E, the atmosphere heats up, and you're able then to have your signal hop around the country or even around the world. The problem, though, with 6 meters was that it created interference on the TV channels. At the time, everyone had antennas on the roof. They didn't have cable at the time. So I had some difficulties with neighbors and had to really put some quiet times on my station. But it worked out, and it was a lot of fun. So a lot of time transpired before I went on to the next level of licensing. Work and family gets in the way. And I then joined the Great South Bay Amateur Radio Club in Babylon, New York. And there they had licensing classes. And I met a gentleman there, N2MUN, who at the time was the president of the Great South Bay Amateur Radio Club. And he was administrating the advanced licenses. And he had such a knack for being able to translate complex technical terms and formulas into something that I could understand. And without his help, without his mentoring, without his patience, I would have never gone on to the top level of amateur radio licensing. So that's kind of where I'm at now. What I really enjoy about amateur radio, it's basically The technical side, of course, being able to constantly experiment, try to improve your station, but most importantly, making friends all over the globe. I mean, you have the opportunity to talk to people from one end of the world to another, depending on propagation, depending on what cycle you're in. Right now, we've been in some low sunspot cycles, so it's been a challenge, but I enjoy very much meeting new people, discussing what they're using. The challenge of the high bands, 80 meters and 160 meters, the top band, to see how I can string up antenna systems to be able to reach stations that might not be possible. So I enjoy that. We call that DX. I enjoy rag chewing, as I said, meeting new people, and of course contesting as well. And I also enjoy public service. That's an important facet of our hobby. Public service, aiding basically the different service agencies, whether it's the Red Cross, or whether it's the Salvation Army, or services where we have a memo of understanding and work with them when there is a disaster. And it's something we're very, very proud of in amateur radio, and continue to do, and are continue to be dependent upon as well. If you want more information, the overall organization that really is the basically the spokesperson for amateur radio is the American Radio Relay League, ARRL. So if you go to their website, ARRL.org, you'll be able to find a lot of information about how to get involved, and basically what are some of the other activities that you could enjoy in amateur radio. They're the national resource. They are our representative to the government, because, as you know, amateur radio spectrum frequencies are very valuable, and they are constantly in Washington talking about the importance of amateur radio. You can see here on the bands there's a couple of stations that are really transmitting this. Right now I'm speaking to you on January 30th, 2020, and right now we're on the 20 meter band, and you can see the frequency is 14227. It's the time of day right now where you're not going to hear DX, but there are some stations that are here. So what's the purpose? I mean, do I think that I'm going to be able to impart any information that's not available out there on YouTube, out there in books? I mean, there's nothing special really about what I'm going to talk about. I'm not sure where this is going to go. If there's any interest, if you are out there and happen to pick up my YouTube channel, which I'll basically upload this to YouTube. And if you have any suggestions or comments, you can write to me at W2JV, Whiskey 2 Juliet Victor, at ARRL.org. And if you have any suggestions, any ideas, anything you'd like me to talk about, please let me know. But again, I don't know what precisely I can add, if anything, but perhaps maybe I can give a different perspective on things in general and where this might take us. So let's just tune around a little bit and see what we can find.
And the hill that you have behind you there to the west is not helping probably either. Well, I'm on one of the highest hills in southern Cass County, but I'm pretty much surrounded by trees, which I thought would hinder me more than they do. But anyway, we're having fun on ham radio, I guess, and that's the main thing.
There you go, having fun on ham radio.
24 degrees. And we have about 20 inches of snow on the ground here, Marv. Back to you.
Now, we can't hear Marv. I'm not sure where Marv is located, but my antenna right now is pointed north. It's pointed at about 55 degrees. So it's pointed for early morning long-distance stations. It's pointed towards Europe. So that's why you're not hearing him. And you can...
I just put a new tower up, so that tower is about 60 feet higher than it was before. Over.
Tune around a little bit.
That was going on for 3 years, but maybe they'll get around to having a sort of a normal life over.
Now this is sideband, SSB, And this is upper sideband that we're listening to here on 20 meters. So as you can see, not a lot of activity. Here I tune up to the bands. And yeah, it's kind of quiet right now, but that's typical for the afternoon and when there isn't any contesting. Well, I just wanted to do a little primer. Didn't want to spend too much time here, really just talking about amateur radio, and perhaps we'll have other streams going on and talk about other facets of amateur radio. Thanks a lot for anyone that's listening. 73s, as we say in amateur radio, and have a good day. Thank you. This is Whiskey 2, Juliet Victor.